Today is a very interesting day, really. Today, 15th January, is the 2020 Armed Forces Remembrance Day, a day set aside to honor the fallen heroes who sacrificed their lives for the good of the Nigerian nation. Today is also for the 7 heroes who continue to fight and sometimes lay down their lives to maintain the territorial integrity of our nation, Nigeria, and also for the sustenance of world peace through the various United Nations peace support operations and internal security operations, ISO. Armed Forces Remembrance Day was initially marked in Nigeria on the 11th of November of every year to coincide with the Remembrance Day, or Poppy Day as they call it, or 11/11, to honor veterans of the First and Second World War in all Commonwealth countries. However, the date was changed to January the 15th of every year in commemoration of the surrender of Biafran troops to the federal troops on the 15th of January 1970. While in the front lines of the war against Boko Haram insurgency, peacekeeping operations, or in the many internal security operations, many of these officers and men of the armed forces have died. Others have been maimed and injured. Those who are fortunate to come back home arrived as changed human beings as they bear eternal physical and mental scars of war. Now, as we celebrate or commemorate the Armed Forces Remembrance Day today, the big question is, how really does Nigeria as a country take care of not just the memories of the fallen heroes, but the 7 Nigerian soldiers, especially those who are at the battlefront? What welfare packages do they have? Obsolete weaponry is what people are always complaining about. Our tactics of war are outdated. So that's what international media is reporting. So many issues. So are we really celebrating today, or should we mourn as a country who have actually let down not only the fallen heroes, but those ones who are still standing and fighting for the security of this nation, Nigeria? The phone line is 0802-836-8971, SMS only. Let's quickly go and take a look at this video. It's actually on the Biafran troops and also the Nigerian troops during the civil war that took place between 1967, if I'm correct, and 1970. All right, this is actually what the scenario looks like, because it's from then on that the commemoration of the Armed Forces Remembrance Day began to have meaning for us as Nigerians. We'll be back after this clip.
Mama brought me up alone and always said to me that it traveled and hasn't returned and will never return. With a why question, Mama said that it fought for peace and in
soon after dawn, men of the Special Task Force Battalion prepare to attack the northern outskirts of Ikotek Penny. Each man received just 50 precious rounds of ammunition as the platoon commander briefs his young soldiers.
You dash down, you pick your man, you move. You dash down, you pick your man, you move. No waiting of armor, nothing. We haven't got it, but we are going to get this war to the end. Is that all right? Yes, sir. Now, make sure that each time you are moving, that you are moving in the right direction. Another Savior. Holy, 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 another Savior, another Savior. Holy, 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 another Savior. Holy, holy.
The Biafrans have no artillery to speak of. Their only answer to Nigerian firepower is a homemade rocket. About a mile north of Ikotek, we've come under fire from further east. The enemy is still a long way away, although the rifle fire, light machine gun fire shown extremely close overhead. Our troops are now pushing forward into Ikotek itself, clearing the enemy as they go. despite the need to conserve every round, the Biafran troops fire blindly at enemy positions they can scarcely see.
Welcome back. Now, those were footages coming from the Nigerian Civil War, and of course the Nigerian Army, of course, fought that war to a standstill. And yet again, the Nigerian Army's strength is being tested, you know, as they battle the Boko Haram insurgents. And officially, 353 soldiers have lost their lives between the year 2016 and 2020, although a lot of people believe that that number is underreported. Now, to my panelists this afternoon, commemorating the Armed Forces Remembrance Day has become more like a ritual. You know, let's talk about the true meaning, you know, of this particular day, the Armed Forces Remembrance Day.
Well, January 15 means a lot of things to Nigeria. Mm-hmm. In fact, if you look at our history, when global, because what metamorphosed into Nigerian army today, what from the global houses, immediately after the state freed, there were some certain houses that were freed. But because there is a royal company that looks like an international company that they need to safeguard, it gathered all these together. They call them global houses. They were the one that patched together. After patching them together, so far you are Nigerians and you know the terrain very, very well, they turned them into a group of security. So later on, when Nigeria really wants to form their own army, all these people metamorphose into Nigerian army. Before they were now taken from different particular sections. Having said that, there is no way we want to talk about January 15 that we are not going to mention how it started. January 15, 1966 was when military dabbled into Nigerian politics. And at that particular time, I could recall Major C.K. Nzegu, Chukwuma Kaduna Nzegu. The name resounds northerner, but it's not a northerner because he was born and bred. In fact, primary school, secondary school before joining army is in Kaduna because it's much of Kaduna, but it was from the east. So all his colleagues, they tagged him to be Kaduna. Very intelligent gathering is his own style. With some certain people, they really want to wrestle power. And that was led to a lot of people. We could recall how Ahmad Bello died. We could recall how Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe had to run away. Okoti Ebo, the Minister for Finance there, was also killed. That particular January 15 signified something in 1966. They're now moving back. When the Civil War started in 1967, in 1970, January 15 was when the supposed leader of Biafran troops had to announce that at this particular time, we believe in Nigeria, we are part of Nigeria, we are going to remain with part of Nigeria. And this, looking at this,
that was the turning point.
That was the turning point. At that particular time, we will now discover that from 1970, we know how military as even part of our polity. From that 1970, we rolled to 1976 before General Murtala Mohammed died, February 13 to be precise. From 1979, when civilian government came into being, they have to dabble upon in 1983. From 83, 85. From 85 down to 92, 93. 93 again, then we have another thought till 1999.
So going by what you're saying, the Nigerian army has evolved.
They evolved
over the years.
In fact, some people believe that Nigeria soldiers were part of our own independence because some of these people were transported into independence because they exist even before independence.
Okay.
But one thing that is very, very germane is this. As a country, if you look at our history, Nigerian soldiers have tried. in terms of human protection, they've tried. Then in terms of our unity, they've tried.
Peacekeeping missions.
Go to Congo, go to Nigeria, they will heal them. But one thing still certain, if you look at all their history and relate it to present situation of insecurity we'll have in all parts of the country, although it's cooled down, but we are still having pockets of bombs here and there, or insecurity here and there. But one thing there is this: if we want to look at this, soldiers, Nigerian army have contributed much in terms of infrastructural development, human relations, and every other thing.
All right, because of time, let me move to Honorable Amzad. Now, seeing all of the sacrifices, that our men of the forces have made for Nigeria's security, so to say, would you say that they are being taken care of as they ought to be?
Well, to a large extent, I would say to a large extent they are being taken care of.
Okay.
But like we always say, things are not always done the way we want it. So the government cannot come online or on here and tell us this is what they have been doing for the Nigerian forces. But with what we are saying and what we know, they are being taken care of.
You think so?
Yeah, I think
okay,
so.
You're speaking like a politician that you
No, I'm not talking like a politician.
Yeah, and I want to go with a report out there,
that
says to a large extent there is neglect, when we talk about Nigerian soldiers, especially those who are made to go to war.
No, you will say there is neglect. Okay, let me cite an example. Yeah, I was at the force headquarters some days ago. I met with the Commissioner of Police and we were discussing. While discussing, he gave me some instances of what the government is doing that they cannot relate to the world. You understand? So these are things that the government do for them, but we don't see. So I'm not talking like a politician here, but the government cannot come on here and start telling us what they've been doing for the military. So a whole lot of things that are being done on the ground that we don't know. So they are trying their best, but they can't do everything.
So in that regard, would you blame the media? Because we cannot report what we do not know. If the government are doing good things, and they don't want it reported
for security reasons. There are some things that cannot be divulged to the media.
Chooks, you are a journalist. How do you look at all this?
Okay, let me even start by, first of all, saying that watching that video, took me down memory lane. The stories we heard about the Civil War and what the Biafran soldiers went through during the Civil War in the hands of Nigerian troops. And then at the point where Ojukwu had to call off the war, and then we talked about the conciliation, which they did halfway. Let me tell you that the war ended in 1970, but a lot of Igbo policemen and to some extent military men that were on the Nigerian side before the war, who had to move back to fight with the Biafra, were not reinstated into the army. They were not reinstated into the police. So a lot of them stayed for years without pension, without gratuity, even when they had served the Nigerian army and Nigerian police enough to have their pensions. It was only in 2017, with the intervention of Sharon Ikazo, who became the PITAT's executive secretary, who happens to be an Igbo woman, that went into that matter. And the file was brought back after 1970. So a lot of them who were alive got their pension. They started getting pension from 2017 because of the intervention of Sharon Ikazo and because of the political will of Mr. President to grant that. And then I learned that one of the issues that he raised is that how can you have this kind of issue since 1970 and then you had people from the southeast occupy positions and they didn't think
this
is
important. A spin-off from that,
that's what we're saying. So it also tells you how far we've not treated our military men well and our police well. And then I want to now go into details. In a country where you you budget for arms, and then people sit down in Abuja and share it like you're sharing pure water. So what are you talking about?
At the detriment of
and you remember
people's lives.
The Nigerian military protested. They were about to level all of them before people started shouting. They protested that we can't continue without having the necessary arms that we need to fight. So these are issues that are there. But you know, it doesn't. It also reminds you of how we are as a people. It is my personal opinion that an average Nigerian does not take security serious. We only shout about insecurity, but we never take security serious. A typical example is that when people want to hire a security man for their house, they look for the person they will pay cheap. Or maybe a retired old man that they can.
And not a professional.
Not a professional. So nobody wants to spend money on security. It's in our DNA not to take care of security men. I'm telling you this. Just go and check. Every organization, the security man is the one who receives the least salary. Meanwhile, the life and property of the company is in his hands. So it just tells you.
That's an irony.
Yeah, because we come from the same society. These leaders come from the same society. It's something we've always done. So I won't be surprised if Nigeria is not taking this military serious.
So having said all of this, now this day, which is the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, what sort of meaning really is the government giving the day?
You see, it is left for the government to decide what they want to do. And we always know that people say things they don't practicalize. But I will give credit to this government, especially what they have done with the military. If you check, suddenly our military, we hear that our military, they produce armored tankers, they produce ammunition. We've never had that in a very long time. The military could not even get uniforms to wear, not to talk of producing anything. Suddenly you are beginning to see those inventions. Because the military, Nigerian military used to be one of the most disciplined set of soldiers. When they go for peacekeeping, you hear them talk about Nigerian soldiers. What we should be talking about is how do we practicalize some of the things we are saying to ensure that these guys are well treated. We give them all the necessary. The Nigerian army, they are not asking for, they're asking for basic. Everything check. It has not been excess about.
Of course.
They never ask for increment of anything. No, give us what we need, the basic.
Weapons
so
to fight.
Why can't we give them the basic?
Okay, all right. You were saying
if you have seen those people, soldiers that have died, and you see their family members. I saw a woman that happens to be a wife to a lieutenant colonel. That now she says she sells food. She sells food. Until maybe the wife of the chief of staff gave some things to them yesterday. Then she was that my husband died as a lieutenant colonel, and in fact the way she was talking, I was weeping because I know that if somebody is a lieutenant colonel, equivalent of it in the federal civil service, I'm very sure that person should not die, and the family will be like that.
Okay, all right.
But, before we, I just want to say this. There's something we need to get right. The fact that things are not being done at the grassroots level doesn't mean the government doesn't do anything about it. It's not doing anything about it. You said something that it was when someone came in that the government did something. And the president was like, why has this been in the carpet for long? So the fact is, the government will try to do something, but the people that are in charge are the ones that actually doesn't really do most of these things. If you say someone, the wife of someone died, someone died and the wife was selling food and all that, it is certain that the government at times don't see these people. There are people that are the ends of affairs of these people that should report these cases, but they don't do.
Okay. All right, well, I'm happy you're here. I'll still tackle you a bit on grassroots involvement in governance. We'll come back to that. Anyways, the footage you saw earlier is of the 10th Battalion of the 2nd Division of the Nigerian Army, and in that footage they were preparing to march towards Ore in a counter-attack against the army of the secessionist state of Biafra, which had occupied the Midwest state of Nigeria, just to be clear, and that footage is courtesy Getty Images. Moving on.
So sorry, before we move on, 1 minute.
10 seconds.
I just need 10 seconds. I'll manage it. What I'm saying is that beyond, we can sit down here and accuse the government, but I believe personally that the military itself has done a lot of injustices to their men.
Exactly, that's what we are saying.
It's also another issue. Because you find that I have never seen any government that do budget and they did not budget for the army. I've never heard that any government withheld anything for the army. But how come when the thing gets there, we don't see
it doesn't trickle down?
So there's also an issue of the army themselves.
Shortchanging themselves.
Yeah, it's clear.
All right.